separated and waiting for my slightly contentious divorce to be finalized, I realized that I was unwilling to give up male companionship. Out of the dating game for 20 years and living in a remote area, I decided I would try the newly launched Match.com. This was the 1990s, when online dating was considered to be weird, creepy, dangerous, if not downright foolish. I surveyed the local dating scene and decided it was worth the risk. This was long before the plethora of specialty and helpful sites came out, like gluten-free singles, cowboys and cousins, or elites meet. I figured, I've been around the block a few times, and I was a pretty good judge of character. What could go wrong? So I jumped right in. My first query was from a man who announced that he had his own room. I thought, I wonder if it's a cot, there's 3 meals a day, secured access. Maybe it's a gated community. The second man said he was an engineer, he was local. We decided to meet at a pub. Now, we all have doppelgangers, and his was almost Edgar Winter. He was short, round, bald, but he had white blonde hair that was long and pulled back into a ponytail. It grew up from the sides. He was wearing a leather jacket with lots of buttons and flair. His goofy tennis shoes and iron jeans didn't quite complete the outfit. When we sat down, he started railing about his ex-wife. When I decided I'd better leave, he was practically blubbering. But then I met, there was another one in there. I met the NBC lawyer and drove to New York City to have lunch with him. If I hadn't have known that he was going to have a bouquet of flowers, I wouldn't have recognized him because his photo must have been taken a decade earlier. This was a deal breaker for me. I didn't know whether he was vain, in denial, or just plain deceitful. But then I met the quarterman. The quarterman, we decided to meet at a local health food vegetarian store. It was a store restaurant. And when I came into the store, I saw him at the checkout counter. His almost doppelganger was Al Pacino. He was very short, slim. He was wearing cranberry shorts, topsiders, and sunglasses. When I came closer to introduce myself, I noticed that he was paying for almost $20 worth of dry goods in quarters. We went into the restaurant to eat. He handed me his business card. Now, this is something I know something about. It was a beautifully printed business card, nice typography, very expensive, heavy cardstock, only had his name on it. It must not have been that effective because I still don't remember his name. After we ate, he asked me if I would pay for our meal. I was a little offended, I didn't know the man, but I said, okay, I'll pay. He clearly didn't want our time to be over and then asked me to go to the local coffee shop. And I said, will I have to pay for that too? He said, no. He says, I have money. I have money in my car. And I said, oh, okay. So we go out. He points to his car parked on the street. It's a taupe-colored Mercedes. The trunk is really low, really low. I'm wondering about that. What's in his trunk? But I didn't have to wonder long. He came around to the trunk, he opened the trunk, and it was filled with quarters. He had bags and crates full of quarters. He scooped up a handful of quarters, put them in his pocket, and we went up to the coffee shop. Now, this man was very mysterious. I couldn't get anything out of him. He asked a lot of questions of me, but I didn't learn anything about him. And this was before the age of Google, when you could just Google someone. So I asked a friend of mine who really knew everyone in the area, in the region actually, and she found out that she thought he was an out-of-work television anchor. He asked me on a second date. I was game. I went down to his well-appointed, clean apartment. He had on a news program, and he was dissecting the news anchors, their performance. Okay. He wanted to take me to a nice Italian restaurant. I was a little worried about this, and I checked his belt to see if he had one of those quarter dispensers. I said, well, how are you going to pay for that? And he said, I have a credit card. I said, oh, very good. It was a dark and cold and rainy day, and he decided that on the way there we were going to take a detour to a cemetery. Okay. He wanted me to get out in the rain. We didn't have an umbrella. He wanted me to look at the gravestones. Mind you, these weren't gravestones of his family members. These were gravestones of supposedly old money characters in Albany. We quickly went to the Italian restaurant, and he started to talk about people in adjoining seats, their relatives, their lineage, how they came into their money. On the third date, he wanted to come to my house, insisted on cooking dinner for me, and my son, my 11-year-old son, and my friend Marianne. He spent hours cooking a really excellent lentil dish. When we sat down at the table, my friend Marianne noticed out loud, your hands are very small. He was outraged, and he immediately launched into some mathematical calculations about the importance of girth, and I think pie was in there somewhere. The table was quiet. Marianne peeked under the table. Let's see the feet. I'm happily married now to a good man who I met in the flesh. I didn't see the quarterman after that dinner. I learned along the way that he had owned an apartment building and the quarters were from the laundry room. But during the dinner, he had made fun of my son and called him obese, which he wasn't. So I should have noticed right at the beginning that he was really only a quarter of a man.